The afternoon sun slipped through the tall pines, casting gold streaks over the gravel driveway as I pulled up to my lakeside cabin. It had been months since I last came here, my little escape from city noise and the chaos of work. The kind of place where silence actually meant something, but the moment I stepped out of my truck, something felt wrong. Laughter, glass clinking, music. The faint echo of voices floated from behind my cabin. For a second I thought maybe one of the neighbors was having a gathering. But then I noticed something else. My cabin door was wide open. I froze. It wasn't the wind. There were cars parked along the dirt path, cars I'd never seen before. The sound of chatter and the smell of barbecue drifted through the air. And just like that, a cold realization settled in my gut. Someone was inside my house. I tightened my grip on the truck keys and walked forward, boots crunching the gravel. As I got closer, I saw her, a woman in her late 40s, with perfectly styled hair, a floral dress, and sunglasses too big for her face. She was laughing with a group of people on my back porch like she owned the place. She spotted me almost immediately. Her smile faded, replaced by a look of offense like I was the one intruding. "Excuse me," she snapped, stepping forward. "This is private property. You can't just walk in here for a moment." I just stared at her. I thought maybe she was confused, maybe lost. But then I looked past her shoulder through my open door and saw my own photographs hanging on the wall. My couch, my fishing gear is stacked in the corner. "My home, private property?" I repeated slowly. "Yeah," the woman scoffed. No, no, no. I don't think so. This cabin is under the Homeowners Association's management. I'm Deborah, HOA president. "You're trespassing." I let out a low breath, trying to keep calm. "There's no HOA here," I said firmly. "I bought this land outright 5 years ago." Her eyes narrowed. "That's impossible. This community falls under our jurisdiction." Behind her, a few guests started whispering, half amused, half nervous. One guy with slicked back hair smirked and raised his drink like he was watching a live show. "Look." "Deborah," I said, my voice steady but low, "I don't know who told you that, but you're standing on my property. And you're hosting a party in my cabin." She tilted her head, lips curling into a patronizing smile. "Sir, I don't appreciate your tone. You need to leave before I call the police." That's when my patience snapped. "Call them," I said. "Please do." Her expression flickered for just a second, a tiny flash of doubt, but she quickly turned away and pulled out her phone. "You're making a huge mistake," she said sharply, already dialing. The guests exchanged awkward looks. A couple of them muttered something about leaving, but she waved them off. "No one's going anywhere. We'll handle this within 10 minutes. I heard the familiar sound of tires crunching gravel. 2 police officers stepped out of their cruiser, adjusting their belts as they looked between me and Deborah. "There he is," she shouted, pointing at me. "That's the man who broke into my property." My jaw clenched so tight I could feel my pulse in my teeth. "Sir," the taller officer said, walking toward me, "we're going to need to see some." Edie nodded silently, reaching into my back pocket. The humiliation burned through me, standing there like a criminal outside my own home while strangers watched from my porch. Deborah folded her arms, her voice dripping with fake concern. "He's been hanging around here before." "I told you he was dangerous." The word hit harder than I expected. I handed the officer my ID and met her eyes. "Are you sure you want them to run my name?" I asked quietly for the first time. She blinked just once, like maybe she'd bitten off more than she could chew. The officer stepped aside, radioing in my details while his partner typed something into the squad car's tablet. Deborah leaned closer to him, whispering fast, gesturing dramatically toward me. The taller officer's brows furrowed as he looked back at the screen. Then he turned to me again. "Sir, it says here you're the registered owner of this property." The entire yard went silent. Deborah's smile froze, then faltered. "What? No, that can't be right. I manage this property under the HOA. There is no, here," I repeated calmly. "You made that up." The shorter officer turned toward her. "Ma'am, is that true?" "There's no active HOA in this area according to county records." Her lips twitched. Well, we were just trying to maintain order." "Someone has to take care of things around here." "You mean someone has to take other people's property?" I said, stepping forward. She glared at me like I'd just insulted royalty. "You don't understand. We've been keeping this neighborhood clean and safe. You disappeared for months. I thought this place was abandoned. Abandoned? I let out a short, humorless laugh. You broke into my house, threw parties, drank my wine, and now you're acting like the victim the taller officer sighed, clearly uncomfortable. Ma'am, do you have any documents to support your claim? Deborah hesitated. They're at home. I can bring them later, of course. I turned to the officers. Look, I have the purchase papers, tax receipts, and my deed all stored inside. I can show you right now. If she move out of the way, she crossed her arms tighter. You're not stepping inside until this is cleared up. I tilted my head, voice low. You're really doubling down on this lie, aren't you? Her face flushed red. You're threatening me, she yelled suddenly, stepping back dramatically. Did you see that? He's aggressive. The officers exchanged a glance, the kind that said they'd seen this act before the shorter one held up a hand. Ma'am, calm down. Nobody's threatening you, but she didn't stop. He's dangerous. He's been lurking around here, I told you. I took a slow breath, forcing myself not to react. You keep calling me dangerous, but you have no idea who I am. That's when the taller cop, still reading the screen, looked up again. Wait, he said slowly. There's a note here about military service. Special operations? I gave a small nod. Retired 6 years ago, the woman's face went pale. The smug expression she'd worn like armor started to crack. Her eyes darted between the officers and me, like she was suddenly realizing just how badly this could go. The guests were whispering now, murmuring things like, wait, he owns the place. And she told us this was hers. One guy set his drink down and backed away from the porch. Deborah, what's going on? She spun toward him, desperate. Don't listen to him. He's lying. He's just trying to take over, but her voice trembled now. And even she didn't sound convinced anymore. The taller cop stepped aside and gestured toward me. Sir, you said you have ownership documents inside? Yes, I said, eyes still on her. And something else that'll clear up every lie she's told. The taller officer motioned for me to go ahead, and I walked past Deborah, brushing shoulders just slightly. She flinched like I'd shoved her, making sure everyone noticed. Her voice rose behind me, brittle with desperation. You can't just walk in there. Officers, stop him. This is harassment. But no one moved. The shorter cop followed close behind me as I pushed open the cabin door. The familiar scent of cedar and dust greeted me, mixing with something sour, spilled wine, and cheap perfume. I looked around and my chest tightened. Plates on the counter, empty bottles on my handmade table, footprints across the floor I'd sanded myself. This wasn't just trespassing. It was disrespect, sir, the officer said gently. You said you had papers? I nodded, crossing to the small cabinet beside the fireplace. Inside, sealed in a waterproof folder, were my ownership documents, the deed, tax receipts, mortgage closure papers, all under my name, Lucas Reynolds. I handed them over. Every year accounted for. No HOA involvement, no joint management. He took them and glanced over the signatures, nodding slightly. Looks legit. We'll confirm through the county, but this looks solid. As he flipped through the papers, something else caught my eye, the tiny blinking light in the corner above the mantel. My cabin's security camera. I smiled faintly. Officer, I said, before you leave, there's one more thing I think you'll want to see. He frowned. What's that? I walked to my desk and pulled out a small black hard drive from the drawer. Footage. Every room, every corner, recorded. He raised an eyebrow. From when? The day I left. Up to about an hour ago. For a moment, silence filled the air. Outside, I could still hear Deborah arguing with the other cop, her voice cracking now, losing its power. Would you mind stepping outside with that? I asked. Might make this easier for everyone. The officer nodded and followed me back out. As soon as we stepped onto the porch, Deborah's voice shot out like a siren. Did you find anything? Because I'm telling you, he's dangerous. He probably forged those documents. The taller cop rubbed his temple, already exhausted. Ma'am, we're going to review something that might clear this up. I handed over the hard drive. This contains full surveillance footage from my security system. Everything that's happened here since the day I left. Officers exchanged a quick glance before plugging it into their cruiser's dash screen. Deborah's fake confidence faltered for the first time. She folded her arms tightly, but her fingers were shaking. Fake, she said. That's all fake. Probably edited, no one answered. The screen flickered to life at first. The sound of laughter, hers, filled the quiet driveway. Then the footage showed her unlocking my door with a key she didn't own, waving her guests inside. She moved confidently, like she'd done it before. Gasps rippled through the group gathered around. That's my living room, I said quietly. Right there. Look, one of the guests, a tall man in a blue shirt, muttered under his breath. Wait, she said this place was part of the clubhouse. Deborah snapped her head toward him. Shut up, Todd. But it was too late. The crowd had turned. The same people who'd laughed at me earlier were now stepping back from her. Murmuring in disbelief, the shorter cop froze the video, zooming in on the screen. Ma'am, he said evenly, is that you unlocking this cabin? She tried to laugh. That's clearly edited. It's not even me. The officer zoomed closer. The reflection in the window made it undeniable. Same face. Same dress, ma'am, he repeated, voice cold now. You're trespassing on private property. That's a serious offense. Her mouth opened and closed like she was trying to form words but couldn't find any weight, the taller cop said, scrolling further through the footage. There's more. The next clip showed Deborah sitting at my kitchen table, taping bright orange papers labeled HOA violation notice to envelopes, each stamped with a fake logo. The officer paused the screen again. Care to explain this, ma'am? Her face went pale as chalk. I was just trying to keep the neighborhood organized, she shouted, voice cracking. People were parking anywhere, leaving trash out. Someone had to take charge. By impersonating an HOA and breaking into private homes? I said sharply. She spun toward me, eyes wide and wild. You don't get it. You left this place empty. It was just sitting here, collecting dust. I improved it, cleaned it, brought life back to it. By hosting parties with my wine and lying to the police? She didn't answer. The taller cop stepped closer. Ma'am, we received complaints last week about fake notices being placed on nearby doors. The description given matches you exactly. I think we've got more than enough here to file charges. The crowd went completely silent. Deborah's knees wobbled. No, you can't do this. I was trying to protect this neighborhood. He's twisting everything. Protect it from what? I said quietly. From the man who actually owns it. Her mask finally broke. You think you can just walk back into town and take everything I built? It's not yours to take for a second. She stood frozen. Then her face hardened again, and she jabbed a finger at me. You think this is over? You'll regret humiliating me like this. The shorter cop raised his voice. Ma'am, that's enough. You're under investigation for trespassing, forgery, and impersonating a property officer. He reached for his cuffs, but before he could finish, Deborah spun around and bolted toward the lake. Her heels clattered on the wooden dock as she ran, her hair whipping in the wind. Stop! The officer yelled, sprinting after her. The crowd gasped, several people pulling out their phones to record. She didn't make it far. Halfway down the dock, the officer caught her by the wrist. She screamed, struggling, but he held firm. You're only making it worse for yourself, he said through gritted teeth. The taller cop approached slowly, hand on his holster. Ma'am, calm down. She tried one last desperate trick. You can't arrest me. I'm the president of this neighborhood. He stared at her flatly. No, ma'am. You're not. The click of the handcuffs echoed across the lake when the officers finally brought her back up the path. Her makeup was smeared, her voice gone hoarse from shouting. She avoided my eyes completely. One of the guests, the same man who'd laughed at me earlier, stepped forward awkwardly. Hey, man, he muttered. I didn't know. She told us she owned the place. I just nodded. Now you do. The crowd started to disperse, quiet and embarrassed. Empty glasses and paper plates littered the deck, reminders of a lie that had finally collapsed. The taller officer handed me back my documents. We'll need you to come down tomorrow to file a formal statement, he said. But rest assured, she won't be coming back here tonight. Appreciate it, I said softly. They guided her toward the cruiser. As they opened the back door, Deborah twisted around, her voice cracking one last time. You'll regret this. I'll sue you. I'll sue all of you. But her words fell flat, swallowed by the flashing red and blue lights reflecting off the water, watched as the car pulled away, the siren fading into the trees. For the first time all evening, the property was quiet again, just the hum of crickets. The soft splash of lake water against the dock. I walked back up the porch steps slowly, the boards creaking under my boots. The air felt lighter, not peaceful yet, but finally mine again inside. I looked around at the mess. Empty bottles, footprints, and lipstick stains on glasses that weren't mine. It would take hours to clean, maybe days, but that didn't bother me. This was my home. And I had it back. I sat down at the table, the same one I'd built from reclaimed pine, and just listened to the silence. It wasn't the kind of silence that felt lonely. It was the kind that meant freedom. After a few minutes, there was a soft knock on the doorframe. I turned. A woman stood there, one of the neighbors who'd been part of the party earlier. She looked ashamed, her arms crossed tightly. I just wanted to say, "We're sorry," she said quietly. We believed her. She acted like she had all the authority. We didn't question. Idy studied her face for a moment, then nodded slowly. That's what people like her do. They talk loud. They wave fake power around. And they hope nobody ever looks close enough to see the truth. She sighed. I guess we all learned something tonight. Yeah, I said softly. Truth doesn't need to shout. It just needs to be seen. She gave a small smile, then turned and walked off down the path. When I finally closed the door, the sound of the latch sliding into place felt like the final note of a long song. I walked through the cabin, switching off lights, straightening chairs, and brushing dust off the mantel. At one point, I stopped and looked out the window. The patrol car's tail lights had vanished completely, leaving only the stars reflected in the lake. For the first time since stepping onto that gravel road for more real-life stories, I exhaled this land. Every tree, every nail, every inch was mine again, and no self-appointed HOA queen could ever take it away. Picked up the hard drive and placed it back on the desk. Maybe someday I'd delete the footage. But not yet. Not until the court had its copy. For now, it was a reminder that no matter how loud the lie, truth always finds a way out. I turned off the porch light, stepped outside one last time, and looked at the calm water glinting under the moon home. Finally, and as the night settled around me, I whispered to the empty air, she thought she could take what wasn't hers. But all she took was her own downfall. If you enjoyed this HOA story, make sure to hit like. It really helps the channel grow. Drop a comment and tell me what you would have done in this situation, and if you love seeing justice served, don't forget to share this video and subscribe for more HOA stories.